Hello everybody and welcome back to the Cupcake Jemma channel with me, Sally, and we are back in Sam's flat today because we've been chucked out of the bakeries because they're too busy, but that is fine. So thank you, Sam, for letting us use your kitchen once more. Now guys, today we're going to be making a New York cheesecake, which I know I say this all the time, but this honestly is my all-time favorite cake in the absolute entire world. I could probably live on these for the rest of my life and be a very, very happy woman, which I might actually do. Anyway, I haven't given you this recipe before because I was kind of hoping I might get to go back to New York and film it there, but alas, that is not going to happen anytime soon, and I can't wait any longer because this recipe is amazing. And maybe you've made a New York cheesecake before and you're thinking, why do I need to make yours? Well, I'll tell you all the way along why my cheesecake is absolutely amazing. So let's get started with making our biscuit base. So first of all, we need some biscuits. Now, I'm going to be using digestive biscuits because they're pretty plain, they're not super sweet, and they don't have loads of flavor. In America, you would traditionally use a graham cracker, and this is our closest thing here in the UK. So we've got 400 grams of these, and we need to whiz them up. So I'm going to use this little food processor, but if you don't have one, you can just bash them with a rolling pin or something nice and hard. So let me just whiz these up. I have to do it in 2 batches because it's a very cute food processor, but it's not very big. So let's put those into the bowl. I'll just do the last ones. Right, so into this bowl with our biscuity crumbs, and I know this looks like a lot, but wait till you see what I'm going to do with it, then it makes sense. I'm going to put in about half a teaspoon of salt, because need I say, salt just brings out loads of flavors. So just mix that through, and then we're going to mix in 170 grams of melted butter. So I've just melted that in the microwave, so pour all of it in. And then we're going to give it a good mix until it's kind of all coated in butter, and it will be quite kind of dry. It won't look like one sort of dough or anything like that, but kind of like wet sand is how people describe it. But I always get a bit confused by that because it depends how long the water's been on the sand for, right? So it needs to be still crumbly, but when you push the spoon into it, it kind of like smushes together like that, you can see. There we go. So now it's time to line our tin. And usually you would find that a biscuit base is just a nice even layer along the bottom of your cheesecake. But in 2019, I was super lucky and I got to go to New York, and I got to go to Eileen's Cheesecake in New York, and it was the best cheesecake I've ever eaten. So if you are in New York or you're going, please go to Eileen's because it is awesome. And if you want to see our New York vlog, Sam and I literally spent a whole day going from top to bottom of New York eating the best sweet ever. I'll put a link to that video in the description box below because it was so much fun. Anyway, what they did at Eileen's was, it wasn't like the biscuit crumb wasn't just at the bottom, it kind of went up the sides of the cheesecake as well, and it was so amazing. So I thought, I'm going to replicate that, I'm going to take it a step further, and this is basically going to be like a bit of a pie dish made out of biscuit base. So we're going to chuck it all in our tin. So this is a 9-inch or 23 centimeter springform pan, which means it's got this clasp on it here. And you'll see at the end when we take the cheesecake out, it just means that it's much easier to get out of the tin. You can get these really easily just from like your local superstore. So now I've got this glass here that's kind of straight. It's the straightest thing I could find. And I'm going to start by smushing it along the bottom and allowing some of the crumbs to go towards the sides of the tin. And when it's looking sort of even, I'm then going to use the glass to really push it against the sides to really compact this biscuit. So we want to make sure that it is as compact as possible so that it doesn't kind of crumble. And once this is really firmly pushed into place, it is time to bake it. So I've got the oven preheated to 175 degrees C, which is fan assisted. We're going to pop it in for 12 to 14 minutes until it's lovely golden brown. So I've let the crust cool down for about 10 minutes just to take the immediate heat off it, and it will keep cooling whilst we make our cheesecake batter. Now, a New York cheesecake, I think, is the ultimate cheesecake. In cheesecake land, you have either baked cheesecakes or you have cold refrigerated cheesecakes. And a cold fridge cheesecake, you know, it is delicious, it's still tangy and creamy and smooth, but I find that they can be a little bit one-dimensional because there's not much kind of texture going on. It is super creamy and super smooth, whereas with a baked one, you get a little bit more bite, and then you've still got the creamy smoothness, and with this one, we're gonna get a little kind of burnt topping as well, so I'll talk about that a little bit later. So we need to get this cheesecake batter made. So we're gonna start with 500 grams of cream cheese. And you want to have this at room temperature. That's quite important, that this batter isn't kind of fridge cold. So I just kind of like smushed it around to get it nice and room temp. And you want to go for a full fat cream cheese, as always with baking. I personally think Philadelphia is the best brand of cream cheese that you can buy. So do look for that. And if not, just make sure it's full fat rather than reduced fat. and into this we are going to add some sugar. So I've got 150 grams of caster sugar, and I'm going to add it in a couple of kind of additions, and we're going to whisk it in between to combine. So just using a regular whisk. We don't want to whip this cheesecake batter too much because we don't want really any air getting in there, because we don't want it to rise and then sink and crack or anything like that. So we are just kind of mixing to combine. So once the sugar has mixed in, it will be very kind of glossy and a bit looser. It's already looking delicious. So now we're going to add some sour cream. So I've got 200 grams of sour cream, and this is again just going to enhance the tanginess of this cheesecake. So we're just going to gently whisk all of this through. Granted, this doesn't look very interesting. It's all just white ingredients being mixed together, but it's delicious. And next up, we've got some more cream, but this is double cream. So full fat cream, something around the 40% fat content. So again, just gently whisk this through, and we've got 200 grams of double cream. And next up, it is time to add some eggs. So this is where kind of fridge cheesecake and baked cheesecake differs. So we're going to be adding 2 eggs and 1 egg yolk. And this is going to help make it a little bit more cakey in texture. So I'm going to add 1 egg at a time. And again, we don't want to over whip this because we don't want to create air. We just want to mix it in until you can't see the egg anymore. So once it's all mixed in, you can go ahead and add your second egg. Now the reason I'm only putting 2 eggs in and then 1 extra egg yolk is because we want the richness from that extra egg yolk, but we don't want all the kind of airiness from the egg white. So we'll just mix this one in. And then we'll get our egg yolk ready. And now it is time to add some corn flour. So I've got 2 tablespoons of corn flour, or cornstarch you want to look for. And we're just going to whisk this through, and this is just going to help to thicken our cheesecake. And it might look kind of lumpy when it goes in, but corn flour does dissolve really easily. And now it is time to add some flavors, and we're going to start with the most important thing of all, and that is salt. Now salt is so important in cooking, whether that's savory food or sweet food, because it just makes everything taste better and more kind of enhanced. Like your cheesy, creamy, tangy cheesecake is going to taste even more tangy and delicious with the extra salt. So a teaspoon of that going in. And then next up, we're going to pop in some vanilla. Now I'm going to put a whole tablespoon of vanilla in. This amazing thick vanilla, and that's good because that's all I've got left. We'll mix that through. And then lastly, we're going to put in some lemon juice, again, just to kind of go along with our tanginess from the cheese and the sour cream as well. So I'm going to squeeze a whole lemon into this bowl just to make sure we don't get any pips, are they called pips, seeds, those things in there. And we're going to add about 3 tablespoons. And that is our cheesecake batter made. So before we pour it into the tin, we're just gonna do a little bit of prep for our tin because we're gonna bake this in a water bath. So we're gonna put the tin into this big dish here and we're gonna put a little bit of water around it. And that's because cheesecakes like a little bit of moisture and a little bit of steam in the oven. Not too much. If you put too much water in, there's too much moisture, so I'll show you about how much you want to go for. But obviously this is a springform pan, which means the base and the sides are separate, so you do not want any water getting in there and making it all soggy. So I've got myself some tin foil here, and you just want to wrap the sides in the foil. And this tin foil is also going to act as a little bit of a barrier to the cheesecake as well, because cheesecakes are quite delicate and you don't want to be chucking a cold batter in, which is why we've got all of our ingredients room temperature, into a hot oven, because it's going to rise and it's going to crack everywhere and it's going to be kind of a bit flan-like and a bit gross. So we really need to be very delicate with this batter. So now we can pour our cheesecake in. So it's a very kind of liquidy batter, so you don't need to spread it out too much. And then we're going to very gently pick it up and put it into this big ceramic dish here, which is going to be our water bath. So now it's time to put it in the oven. Now, a lot of recipes that you'll look for will have the oven temperature very low and it will be a very gentle, long bake. But this is my extra little hint here. Now, most cheesecakes don't like to go into the oven hot, like I've already mentioned, except that burnt Basque cheesecake that we made a couple of months ago. I'll put a link down below if you want to have a look at it, because it is a completely different type of cheesecake. It's more custardy. And the main thing with that is that you get this amazing caramelization all across the top and all around the edges from where it burns. And it is so delicious, and it adds another kind of texture and another flavor to your cheesecake. And I want that on my cheesecake, but obviously, it still needs to be very gentle. So what we're going to do is we've got the oven at 175 degrees C. We're going to put it in for half an hour, and then we're going to drop the temperature to 150, and then we're going to put it in for another half an hour. Don't open your door ever when you're baking the cheesecake, and once it has baked, we want to test it by giving it a jiggle. It will still be very jiggly, that is absolutely fine. We're going to turn the oven off and let it cool down for 1 hour in the oven. Okay, a lot of instructions, but it's really very simple. So let's get this in and we'll pour our water into the water bath. Alright guys, it's almost good news, but there is some bad news, and that is that once your cheesecake has cooled down in the oven for 1 hour, you then want to take it out and let it cool down at room temperature for 30 to 45 minutes until it's kind of not too warm to handle, and then you're going to wrap it in cling film and put it in your fridge for at least 6 hours, because this needs to set and chill. But do not worry, I was busy last night and I have made a cheesecake that has been chilling for ages now, so it'll be lovely and set inside. So let's get it out of this tin so we can try some. Look, it looks marvelous. Okay, I'm just gonna try and cut a really neat slice for you. I'm gonna go over here. Oh, that feels amazing. perfect is that cheesecake? Look how evenly baked it is, and it looks really fluffy, and the topping just looks awesome. Look at that caramelization going on there. And I mean, the biscuit base is huge, but I ask this question a lot when I make cheesecake. I say to people, is there too much biscuit base? And everyone goes, no, it's the best bit. So I'm all for a big fat biscuit base. I'm just gonna dive straight in. That is heaven. It is just the best dessert ever. It's got absolutely everything you want. It's got sweetness, it's got tanginess, it's got a little bit of kind of a savoury touch to it as well from the digestive biscuits. You know, some people like to put sugar in their biscuit base, but I like to keep it plain so that you do get that almost savouriness to it as well. This little bit on top is so good as well. Oh my, words could not explain how much I love cheesecake. I've tried, and it's just not possible. Amazing. Now, it can be a little bit scary sometimes because you might find that your cheesecake has cracked a little bit, and people always say, oh, it shouldn't crack, blah, blah, blah. But if it does crack, don't worry, guys. You know, if you've never made one before, it's totally fine. It's still gonna be just as delicious. So also in the description box below, you'll find the recipe for this cheesecake, but I'll put some links in there too for some other cheesecake recipes we've done. Gemma's done loads of fridge recipes before, like the cookie dough cheesecake. She did a birthday cheesecake. I think she did like a colourful unicorn one as well. And of course the burnt bass cheesecake, which is so good to make. It's completely different and it's foolproof as well. So that's a fab recipe to make. And we'll be back next week with another recipe for you guys. In the meantime, if you're in London, please come and see us at C&D Soho. Grab yourself a cookie, a cupcake, a brownie, and a delicious cup of coffee. And we'll see you next Thursday with another recipe.